Monday, October 4th, 2021, 4:23 a.m., Green Guest House, Mae Sot, Thailand. Starting up the Learning Curve YouTube channel has had a much larger impact on my life than I expected. I enjoy thinking about and making those videos. Unfortunately, as with most of my YouTube or video-related endeavors of the last few years, the time commitment ends up being greater than I'd like. I always have this sense that I can indulge an impulse to make a certain video, do it, and then get on with something else. But the time required to take that task to completion ends up being much greater than I'd anticipated or liked. Just in the last few minutes, as I was showering, shaving, and making coffee, I had thoughts flitting through my brain of the learning curve videos I'd like to make today. I have the ones I already kind of scheduled, but then new ideas popped into my head. The thing is that I continue to be obsessed with the Pocket 2 camera, and I'm on my own very steep learning curve. I want to dive in to learn more and more things about it and test certain features and settings. I want to do these things for my benefit. I'm going to do them anyway. And the learning curve idea just means that I will document my own learning and share it on YouTube. But that ends up being a large time commitment. This morning, I'm going to test and make learning curve videos about these things about the Pocket 2. 1. Microphone quality inside a quiet room, and 2. The control buttons. But while I was mentally going over the process for those two videos, I started thinking about all the other things I wanted to learn about. And if I don't keep things under control, I could end up with a list of 10 and spend the entire week on the project. In a way, these learning curve videos suit me. I enjoy a good project. I like having a clear and precise goal to accomplish. It even helps me overcome my ongoing fatigue. If I happen to be feeling fatigued, a normal day is hard to get through. But if I have an actual goal, then I seem to set the fatigue aside and just power through. After all, I've felt this fatigue for as long as I can remember. I think it started when I was living and working in Taiwan. I was exhausted all the time, but I still went to work and put in a long and hard day. And I'd go off on small adventures all weekend. I was exhausted the entire time, but it just became a state that I had to endure. It didn't actually stop me from doing any of these things. Tuesday, October 5th, 2021, 7 a.m., Green Guest House, Mae Sot, Thailand. My Sukhothai dream is fading again. I got so involved in my learning curve videos and one other project that I ended up far too tired to hit the road. Then it started raining again. So I'm still here. But the dream is not completely dead. I can still go tomorrow morning. In fact, that is still my goal. And with that in mind, the most important items on my schedule for today are cleaning my bathroom and clearing out the fridge, doing laundry, getting a haircut, charging batteries and preparing technology, and packing. It's not so bad to leave tomorrow, to be honest. It basically means that my Sukhothai trip has changed from a week-long expedition to more of a long weekend. Day 1, ride to Tak City or Sam Niao. Day 2, ride to Sukhothai. Day 3, explore Sukhothai. Day 4, explore Sukhothai. Day 5, ride back to Mae Sot. And on Monday at 9 a.m., I have my appointment at the vaccine clinic. And that's fine. There is no need to get greedy with this trip. Considering the amount of work I did over the last few days, I didn't really accomplish that much. As I mentioned the other day, the time commitment of all my various projects is generally much greater than I anticipate. One day, for example, I shot the learning curve video about using various microphones with the Pocket 2 camera inside a quiet room. I set up the Pocket 2 on a table here in my guest room, and I cycled through all the various microphones. That took much longer than I had planned. But I was successful and I learned a lot. I then edited the video and uploaded it to the new Learning Curve channel. The channel now contains a total of 8 videos, and there are 3 subscribers. A funny thing is that YouTube channels were traditionally judged according to the number of subscribers it has. That was a very important metric, and it is still talked about a lot, and a large number of subscribers is a clear indication that a YouTube channel is popular. However, it doesn't really matter that much anymore or provide much useful information. YouTubers themselves often mention that when they look at the stats for their videos, very few of the people who watch their videos are actually subscribed to the channel. In fact, the reality is quite the opposite. It's often the case that 90% of the people who watch any particular video are not subscribed to that channel. Non-subscribers make up the vast majority of the viewers of any particular video. This tendency is so extreme that subscribing to a YouTube channel is now seen more as a mark of approval than anything else. If someone watches a video and likes it, they will then subscribe to the channel as a kind of reward for the YouTuber. You often see comments like this: "Great video, subscribed." The idea is that subscribing to the channel is a treat for the YouTuber, a reward for doing a good job. This person may never come back and watch a second video on your channel, but they subscribed anyway, as a kind of gift and token of appreciation. I'm sure there is a complex web of factors behind subscriber count becoming less significant. However, I imagine a large part of it is that the YouTube algorithms have become so powerful and important. The YouTube algorithms will populate your YouTube feed with videos it thinks you will like based on your history of previous videos you have watched. And for that, it is irrelevant whether you are subscribed to that channel or not. Being subscribed to that channel is surely taken into account, but I know that I am subscribed to a large number of channels whose videos never show up in my feed. YouTube never suggests them to me. Their algorithm pays more attention to the videos I actually watch rather than to the videos that I say I want to watch. I find it to be an interesting comment on human nature. It's like asking people what movies they like, and they list a bunch of classics and other examples of great cinema. But you might find out that though they say they love film noir from the 50s, they actually spend their weekends lost in an endless series of Adam Sandler movies. A person might be subscribed to all kinds of educational and important YouTube channels, but that can be more for show. In reality, they indulge in cute animal videos and late-night talk show excerpts. And YouTube knows their deep, dark secrets and feeds them the content they really do like rather than the content they say they like through their subscriptions. I spent another full day on a new project. To be honest, I don't know if I will follow through on it or not. It all started after I wrote that long story about looking for the lost micro SD card here in my room. I assumed that at some point, as I was shooting a kind of life update video for YouTube, that I would at least mention that small adventure, if not try to tell the story in a short form. But then I got to wondering if I couldn't use what I already wrote about it as a kind of script. After all, I wrote the entire story out in detail already. Why not take advantage of that? I wrote that story with such passion and energy and detail because it was going into a letter and into my journal. But I really like how complete that story is. I pictured telling that story on stage as a kind of funny monologue. And with that in mind, I set up a camera here in my guest house room, and after careful editing to remove overly personal details, I read it aloud, complete with hand gestures and drama. I really enjoyed doing that. I then went on to do the same with the gecko in the hem of my short story and the vaccination story. This project also quickly spiraled out of control, and I spent the entire day reading these stories on camera. My voice is actually quite worn out today. I don't know at this point if I will actually edit and post the videos themselves. We'll see how things go. That project actually sheds some light on a conflict that I feel between shooting video and writing. Writing is much closer to my heart than video. And when you write, you naturally communicate better and more fully. Talking into a camera or even a microphone, unless you are a trained actor, results in a less complete story. I've always known that. I had direct experience with that on my trip to Ethiopia when I switched to keeping a journal on tape instead of on paper. And the recorded audio journals have a drastically different tone compared to the written journals. I don't know if one is worse or better than the other, but they are certainly different. I finally got around to posting a video I shot of me unboxing the DJI Pocket 2 camera. I posted that video yesterday, and I think my next project for today will be to open up that video on YouTube and reply to some comments. I have been so busy the last month that I haven't been regularly replying to comments as I used to do. I just haven't had the time. Once I do that, I will shoot another learning curve video. This one will be about the buttons on the Pocket 2. I've been thinking about the buttons and learning a lot about the Pocket 2's various physical controls, and I want to record my thoughts while they are still fresh. I had an interesting revelation this morning related to that. I actually woke up this morning thinking about what I would say about the buttons and how I would organize my thoughts for the video. And I was about to jot down some notes on one of my phones. And then I remembered that a couple of months ago, I stumbled across a powerful voice recording app called Otter. It occurred to me that a good way to organize my thoughts for this learning curve video is to speak aloud, just as I would in front of the camera, while having Otter record a transcript. As I've mentioned, there is a distinct quality difference between writing and speaking. And if I write a series of notes as a guide to the video, my brain has to then take those written notes and transform them into spoken words. And my writing brain organizes thoughts differently than my speaking brain. So I wondered if making notes for this video might be more efficiently done through speaking aloud while Otter makes a transcript. Then the notes I have might be arranged more properly for speaking. My brain won't have to adjust on the fly and change my written thoughts to spoken thoughts. The written thoughts will actually have been created by the speaking part of my brain. And it might all feel more natural and result in a more efficient process. More than that, I had this idea that I could have Otter recording a transcript while I'm actually shooting the learning curve video. Otter would be saving a full transcript of everything I actually say while recording the video. That could be useful in many ways. My technology brain is on fire this morning with all kinds of interesting thoughts and ideas. Wednesday, October 6th, 2021, 2:45 a.m., Green Guest House, Mae Sot, Thailand. Do I have any business being awake at 2:45? I'm not sure. I guess I will find out. I slept quite solidly from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m., which is a solid chunk of 4 hours of quality sleep. That's nothing to sneeze at for me. In a way, it is a comment on my personality and interests. I'm awake and busy this early mainly because I still plan on taking this scooter trip today. Yet, I still want to do a bunch of things, such as write a bit, before I start the travel day. It's a bit like the theory I presented of how people subscribe to YouTube channels as more of a show they put on for other people. They subscribe to high-quality, thoughtful YouTube channels, but in real life, they watch much more casual, pop culture videos. They don't actually watch the videos from the channels they subscribe to. In my case, I planned ahead to take a scooter trip, but I can't resist the urge to get out of bed at 2 a.m. so that I can write and do a bunch of other things here in my room. I get more pleasure out of this than out of the trip I have planned for the day. I thought about going straight back to bed and to sleep, but then I might wake up at 6 a.m. and I would have just enough time to simply pack up, get on the scooter, and go. I would have no leisure time before the trip started, and I really value this time. However, there have been some signs that I'm making a mistake. I am behaving in a clumsy and distracted fashion, which is a sign that I'm not rested. I bumped my head on the top of the door frame when I went into the bathroom. I never do that normally. And I wanted to get something out of the pocket of my pants, and for a second or two, I couldn't remember where those pants were. I do have an excuse for that second oversight. I did laundry yesterday, and I washed those pants and all my other clothes, and everything was hung up to dry in unusual places. Even so, I normally would not have any trouble remembering where I had put all these items. But this morning I hesitated for a moment, and my eyes are burning a bit more than I'd like. We'll see. Maybe I'll try to go back to sleep soon. I spent the entire day yesterday here at the guest house, and I enjoyed the day. Some interesting things happened. For one thing, I finally got around to editing video using iMovie on the MacBook. I didn't actually finish the video, but I used the raw material to study iMovie and learn how to use it. It is profoundly different from editing video on my smartphone. It was also a slow process because I had no idea how to do even the most basic of tasks. I run into that all the time. I would know how to do these things on a PC or on an Android phone without even thinking about it. But on a MacBook, I'm generally lost. For example, there was a time when I just wanted to see how much memory was available on the MacBook's hard drive. But I ended up just staring at the computer with no idea how to do this. I had to study how to use the MacBook at the same time that I was studying how to use iMovie. And I did run into some situations of such difficulty that I wanted to give up and just go back to editing on my phone. However, I will persist. I feel that it is a good idea to give up my dependency on my phone as a computing device. It's best to make the switch to the MacBook, and I am doing that naturally anyway. Since the day I switched to using this MacBook to write in my journal, I have not once gone back to my normal setup of a wireless keyboard and mouse connected to my phone mounted on a tripod. I reach for the MacBook every morning, and I'm not forcing myself to do that. I want to. And on this scooter trip, I pre-packed based on the idea that I would be taking the MacBook, not my wireless keyboard. That is a tremendous change for me. I don't even know how to safely pack and carry this computer. I also had an interesting moment yesterday when the man who rents me my scooter sent me a message asking me if I liked cheesecake. Of course, I responded in the enthusiastic affirmative, and he dropped by later on with 2 pieces of homemade cheesecake. Apparently, he bakes as a hobby. I suspect he might even sell what he bakes because he had special triangular plastic cases for each piece of cheesecake, the type you would see in display cases at restaurants. I had 1 piece in the afternoon and the second piece in the evening. Pretty much the entire morning was given over to shooting a learning curve video about the buttons on the Pocket 2 camera. Not surprisingly, it took a lot longer than I had imagined. Also, not surprisingly, I overshot my goal of 12 minutes by a wide margin. In fact, in the excitement of the moment, I completely forgot about my goal of making 12-minute videos. I just talked at length about whatever I wanted to talk about without any regard for the amount of time it required. It was only when I made my final point that I suddenly thought, dang, I talked for way too long and about way too much. Now I feel like I have to go back and reshoot it. After all, the Pocket 2 has just 5 physical buttons. Surely I don't actually need 45 minutes to talk about what those buttons do. Or I was thinking that I could make a special subcategory of learning curve videos called cheat sheets. That would be in keeping with the theme of learning and lessons and school. The video I shot yesterday could be the full lesson in which I explain everything. But then I could condense the information down to just the essentials and make a 12-minute cheat sheet video in which I demonstrate just what each button is for. I could think of it as the Coles Notes to go along with the full video. At this point, I've talked about the buttons so much that I certainly have a clear idea of what I want to say. A big issue is that I didn't really understand the buttons and the camera as well as I thought I did. Plus, while shooting the video, I would demonstrate on the camera the things I was saying. And it turned out that some of the things I had read and not yet tested turned out not to be true. In the manual, for example, the DJI company says that the power button serves as an exit button when you are in the settings menu of the camera. I made a big deal out of that, but when I tried to demonstrate that, nothing happened. It turned out that pressing the power button while in the settings menu does nothing. The manual is outdated or just plain wrong. I also found out that some of the topics I broached were far more complex than I imagined, and I didn't fully understand them. Several times I had to stop filming and invest 10 minutes in studying the camera. Then I could go back and finish filming that section with the new information I'd picked up. In the end, I managed to complete the video. Unfortunately, in terms of the raw material I need, that is only the first step. This video consisted of me simply sitting in front of my main camera while holding the Pocket 2 in my hand. The Pocket 2 is too far away and too small in the video for anyone to see what I'm doing clearly. So I also need detailed close-ups of the Pocket 2 in action. That is going to require a completely new camera setup and filming technique. And I've never done anything like that before, and I don't really have the right equipment for it. It will take a lot of time and effort to get that done. My plan is to edit the raw video I shot yesterday, and when that is done, I will have a clear idea of the close-ups that I need and where I could insert them. I just remembered that I copied this raw video onto the Mac. My plan is to make this learning curve video the first full video I edit and export on this laptop. Since the video files are here, I can check the timestamps and figure out exactly how much time I spent on the actual filming. I spent probably 2 hours working on the script and the setup beforehand before I started recording the video itself. I just checked, and the time investment was not as great as I imagined. The first video was shot at 9:50 and the last one at 11:40. Call it 2 hours of filming. It felt much longer than that. A funny thing is that while I did this, I set up a GoPro in my room to capture it all as a time lapse. As I've mentioned before, I'm endlessly fascinated by time-lapse videos. I even spent some time editing that time lapse. I cleaned it up, added some music, and then uploaded it to the Learning Curve channel. It has no educational value, so it doesn't really belong on the channel, but I like to have fun with my cameras and inject a personal flavor to the videos I make. I'm very much the amateur YouTuber. Just for fun, I loaded the raw video into iMovie just now to check the total length, and unfortunately, it is over an hour long. But before I knew it, I'd spent 30 minutes editing the video. I can't help myself. It's fun. But I'm back. I could sense that if I kept at it, I would get so involved that I would never get on the scooter for the trip. Speaking of the trip, I haven't fully thought through how I'm going to document it on video. I may not even end up going to Sukhothai. A friend of mine heard about my plans, and he warned me that Sukhothai is still heavily flooded and it might not be wise to go there. I think it would be fine, but it did get me thinking that, for my purposes, I don't really have to go as far as Sukhothai. I could just as easily go to Sam Nyao and then to Tak City. Despite Tak being so close, I've never been there. I could happily spend a couple of days there hanging out and exploring. In fact, the more I think about it, the more I think that might be the wiser choice. I have a lot on my mind, and adding Sukhothai into the mix might be too much. A more casual trip to Tak might suit my mood better. What I'm thinking is that Sukhothai is a big tourist attraction and a historical park. It is Thailand's version of Angkor Wat. Therefore, any trip there would require a lot of exploring of ruins and the study of the history of Thailand. And my brain is currently so consumed with thoughts of cameras and video and computers that I'm not sure I have the brain cells available right now to fully immerse myself in Thai history. Staying in Sam Nyao and Tak would probably be better, and I can simply immerse myself in the casual pleasures of a new town. I can go back to my video roots of simply walking around and filming. That would be easier and perhaps more pleasurable than trying to do justice to a major scooter trip plus exploring extensive ruins. Yes, I think I've already made up my mind. I'm going to call an audible and make this a trip to Tak City. Oddly enough, I'm still thinking about starting an English teaching YouTube channel, and I thought one of the things I could do is teach English phrases and idioms, particularly the ones that I use in my own Planet Doug videos. I recently used that expression, call an audible, in one of my videos, and I thought that would be an interesting phrase to teach. I doubt very much that I can come up with enough time to run an English teaching channel on top of a technology channel, on top of a vlog channel. But my idea is that I can at least dabble in each one, and if one particular type of video becomes popular or feels right to me, then I can shift my efforts to focus on that channel and let the other ones fade away. To be honest, focused technology and language videos suit me better than the typical YouTube vlog videos. I like the practical, and I get consistent comments from viewers saying that they use my vlog videos to learn English. They appreciate the clear and deliberate manner in which I speak. And I like the idea of helping people learn English. It is a project I could sink my teeth into. And I could draw on my decades of experience as a teacher and editor and voice recorder. However, I would have to be very clear on a number of things beforehand. I would have to be very clear about the audience for the videos. Do I want to make videos for beginners, for intermediate learners, for advanced students? Do I want to focus on grammar, on vocabulary, on practical dialogues and phrases for certain situations? Would they be casual talking about English videos, or would they be intended as follow-along practical practice lessons? But a lot of these thoughts would be explored as I made my first videos. The best way to learn is to just get started. I've reached a crossroads this morning. It is 4 a.m. now, and I do feel tired. I can try to go back to sleep for an hour or two, but that could mean a late start to the day. As much work as I put into packing yesterday, I'm still so overwhelmed with new technology that it will take time to finalize my packing this morning. Getting packed to the point of actually having my backpack strapped to the scooter will likely take 2 hours in total. So if I wake up at 7, I probably won't make it onto the road until 9:30. And that's too late for me. I want to be on the road much earlier than that. I think I will just shoulder the burden of being fatigued throughout today and just officially start the day now. I think the excitement of being on the road will carry me through my fatigue once I get started. I can always sleep early in Sam Niao. I mentioned I'm not sure what to do about video and documenting this trip. One thing I want to do is use the Relive app to keep a complete record of the trip so that I can produce a nice map at the end of it. So I'm going to do that today. But what about my cameras? I want to use my new Pocket 2 as my main vlogging camera. So I will have a GoPro mounted on the scooter, but when I stop at various places, I won't use the GoPro. I'll use the Pocket 2 instead. I'll leave the GoPro on the scooter, or I'll just pop it off and toss it into my knapsack. I've never switched between cameras like that before. I'm not sure how that will work out. And there is the question of whether I want to record myself talking as I ride the scooter or only record the times when I stop. As I said, I'm not quite sure how to handle this. There is also this idea of whether to attempt to be cinematic and creative or not. There is this standard YouTube vlog thing, for example, where a physical situation gets documented in rapid jump cuts. So rather than filming a long sequence of me packing up and loading up the scooter while talking, I'd treat it like a little movie. I'd film a close-up of zippers being closed, straps being tightened, keys being put in ignition, the engine roaring, etc. And then you slap it all together in quick cuts to illustrate getting the scooter ready in 5 or 10 seconds. The idea is to make a fun and entertaining movie instead of a video where I'm just talking about whatever I'm thinking about or doing. Anyway, it is time to switch gears and start getting ready for the day. Thursday, October 7th, 2021, 10 a.m., unknown hotel, Sam Niao, Thailand. As evidenced from the byline, I did manage to get on the scooter and leave Mesot. And from the time, it's a good guess that the day was challenging, and I had to force myself to stay in bed longer this morning in order to recover. The Coles Notes version of the trip would say that it was fantastic. I had such a good day. I enjoyed nearly every minute of it. I even enjoyed the 2.5 hours of rain. I got very lucky there. I was still high in the mountains when it began to rain, but I just happened to be pulling up at a little drink shack where I'd stopped before to enjoy an Italian soda. The drinks shack was closed, so I wasn't able to get my Italian soda or any snacks. However, I was able to relax under their veranda roof and in their reclining chair and wait out the rain in comfort. I'm pretty sure I even fell asleep in the chair. And I had company. Out of nowhere, a friendly dog showed up and shoved her head into my hands and in my lap. This was terribly unusual. I tend not to run into any dogs in Thailand that enjoy human company in that way. They certainly don't enjoy my company. But this dog was different. She was so happy when I pet her that she just about exploded. She was a mid-sized, muddy, stinky dog and had no business being a lap dog, but this did not deter her in the slightest, and she wriggled and squirmed and climbed until she had forced her entire body onto my lap and under my arms, and then she refused to move. This was her spot now, and she stayed with me until the rainstorm ended. While I rode, I had the Relive app running on 2 different smartphones. On one smartphone, I took a bunch of photographs. On the other phone, I did nothing. I just let Relive operate and record the journey without any input from me. The only thing I did on both phones was pause the app from time to time. I stopped early in the day at a coffee shop, and while I was there, I paused Relive on both phones. And I paused it on both of them during the 2.5 hours of rain. There was no point recording my movements when I wasn't moving at all. I was nervous about how Relive would operate. I was eager to have the finished map from both phones. However, I had no confidence that it would actually work. All my previous tests had consisted of trips that were 15 minutes long at most. This trip to Sam Niao clocked in at 10.5 hours, and I assumed the app would crash at some point. This feeling was greatly increased by how the app behaved. There were long stretches of time during which the phones simply stayed in my pocket or in my knapsack untouched. And the idea is that Relive continues to operate in the background. But when I woke the phone back up, the record of my journey would often be completely gone. I would be presented with just the Relive homepage. It looked like all the data had been lost. But it appears that is just how the app works. And if I waited for a few seconds, the homepage would fade away and the map of my journey would reappear. Apparently, when the app goes dormant, this is what it does. It is still recording deep in the phone's systems, but it is no longer wasting processing power and battery life on maintaining the front display. When I woke it up, it simply reloaded the app systems and showed the home page first. Then it called up the deeper part of the program that was connected to GPS, and it recreated the graphic image of the map. This seemed to happen more dramatically on my Xiaomi phone than on my Samsung, and that made sense. The Xiaomi operating system is not as polished as Samsung's. It often glitches and does strange things. I was particularly nervous when I arrived at the hotel in Sam Niao, and I tried to stop recording on both phones. On the Xiaomi, I found myself staring at the Relive homepage and nothing else for a very long time. It felt like the entire 10.5 hours of data was gone. It appeared I had pushed it too far. However, to my delight, it suddenly kicked in and the map of my journey reappeared, and I was able to save it and produce the final 3D movie. The Samsung operated more smoothly, and the Samsung had a lot more to do because I had taken quite a number of photos and videos throughout the day, and it had to deal with those as well. The final 3D movie of my journey is great fun to watch. I love it. It's actually better than I expected and more enjoyable. Out of the 70 or 80 pictures that I took, I could choose only 10 to insert at key moments in the movie. I spent some time thinking about which ones to stick in. Since this movie was meant as a kind of personal vlog and for other people, I leaned heavily into selfie-style pictures over my usual scenery-only pictures. In fact, just taking the selfies was unusual for me. I never do that. But I did that quite a few times yesterday to make the final movie more personal. Rather than just take a picture of the interesting scene in front of me, I would stick my big face into the frame along with it and smile like a dope. As for recording the journey as a vlog, I really struggled with that. I have no idea what I'm going to end up with. I started off with the idea I talked about at the beginning of taking video in a traditional vlogging cinematic style with lots of quick jump cuts of physical action, but that didn't last long. That simply isn't my style. I soon found myself talking at length as I rode along, with the camera pointing either ahead of me on the scooter or back at me as I rode. Plus, I couldn't help but talk about the technology I was using. After all, in my mind, this trip was all about testing the Relive app and about testing the Pocket 2 camera and using it in combination with the GoPro. And since that is what I was thinking about, that is what I ended up talking about. And the video kind of turned into a tech video, even though it was supposed to be a type of travel vlog. On top of that, as if my day wasn't complicated enough already, I made a snap decision to film a learning curve video at the same time. I decided to make a learning curve cheat sheet video consisting of step-by-step instructions for using Relive. Before I left in the morning, I reviewed the process of using Relive and I reduced it to what I thought were 15 steps. And I made a rough plan to stop 15 times during the day and record those steps in front of various scenic vistas. And I would choose those steps to coincide with me really doing those things on the Relive app. This is the rough script I started with. Step 1. Go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store and download the Relive app to your smartphone. Step 2. Create a Relive account with your email address and password. Step 3. Open the app and click on the record button at the bottom of the page. Step 4. Click on the drop-down menu at the top of the page and select your activity type. Step 5. Press Start. The Start button is the big yellow button at the bottom of the page. You can't miss it. Step 6. Put away your phone and start running or hiking or surfing or get on your scooter or motorcycle and enjoy the day. Let the Relive app do all the work in the background. Step 7. Stop occasionally to take a photograph or a short video clip. With the free version of Relive, you can add 10 photographs to your activity. With Premium Relive Plus, you can add both photographs and video clips up to a total of 50. The video clips can be a maximum of 10 seconds long, with the total of all video not exceeding 60 seconds per activity. Step 8. When you stop for a long break, such as for a meal or a drink, hit the pause button. When your break is over, click on Resume. Let Relive continue to do the hard work while you enjoy your day. Step 9. When your activity is over, click on Pause again and then select Finish. Confirm that your activity is over and you really want Relive to finish recording. Step 10. Wait for the app to save your activity and then select Continue to Activity. Step 11. Follow the prompts on the screen to give your activity a title and select photos. Click on Save these to your activity. Step 12. Click on Create a video. Step 13. On the editing screen, add music, photos, photo captions, emojis, and new moments to your movie. Don't forget to tag your friends. Step 14. Click on Create. Wait for Relive to create your movie and the full record of your activity. Share your activity across all your favorite social media platforms. Step 15. Plan your next activity to be recorded with Relive. And that's it. Let Relive do all the hard work. I recorded myself reading each of these 15 steps at a completely different location, and I tried to make each location as interesting or scenic as possible, and I chose those times when, in using the Relive app myself, I was actually doing the thing in the actual step. I haven't had a chance to review the video yet, and I'm worried that I sound like a corporate shill with a fake announcer voice, but it might be fun to put it together. I hope to combine those chunks of video with a screenshot of the Relive app itself, how it looks at those moments, plus a couple of photographs of the scenes themselves. I enjoyed doing this, but it added considerably to the effort that went into the day. One thing I noticed is that this was a much easier day physically than my previous trip on the same road. My previous trip was in the heart of the hot and dry season, and the sun roasted me alive. I arrived in Sam Niao an absolute wreck. But it was so much cooler yesterday, and there was enough cloud cover that I remained comfortable almost the entire time. I wasn't constantly fighting the brute force of the sun. When I arrived in Sam Niao, I was tired, but still okay. That was a nice change. The day was kept pretty spicy too, because since my last visit, the rainy season had wreaked havoc. There were landslides everywhere. At one memorable spot, where the road took a sharp curve into the fold of a valley, the entire mountainside had come down, and the road was simply gone. This must have happened months ago, because since then, a couple of rough bridges had been built to allow traffic to cross over. The road itself hasn't been rebuilt, but traffic can still pass. Traveling along that road would have been impossible from the time of the landslide until they built those temporary bridges. I wonder how long that was. I don't know if I should include this last story. It's a bit disturbing, but it captures a little bit of the extremes that tend to show up on any trips like this that I take. I had come down out of the mountains and rode my scooter to the shore of the Ping River. I had one more Relive cheat sheet step to record, and I wanted to do it with the Ping River as a backdrop. I parked the scooter and I shot the video, and then I returned to my scooter to pack up all my gear and get back on the road. I stood there for a few minutes getting ready, and then I heard what I thought was the peeping of a chick. I assumed there was a chicken nearby with a bunch of chicks busy peeping away. I looked down on the ground and I started scanning the area to see if I could spot this chick. The peeping was getting louder and louder. When I looked down, I was shocked to see that my right foot was nearly black with ants. Somehow, I had put my foot down right in an ant colony of some kind, and my foot was covered with them. I have no idea how I didn't feel them until that moment. I was so startled that I instantly picked up my foot and slammed it down hard in order to shake the ants off. I didn't want them crawling any farther up my leg and getting all over my body. I slammed my foot as hard as I could 3 times to shake the ants off. But in slamming down my foot, I had brought it down directly on top of a tiny newborn kitten. I hadn't seen the kitten at all, of course, and in slamming my foot down, I had killed it instantly. And then the entire picture came into focus for me. The sound I'd heard wasn't the sound of a peeping chick. It was this lost and abandoned newborn kitten crying. It really was brand new to this world. It was blind, it was still wet, it couldn't move, it had just been born. How it ended up there by itself, I couldn't even begin to tell you. There was no mother cat in evidence anywhere. Even worse, the kitten was in the middle of being eaten alive by the ants. That's why there were so many ants there. Without realizing it, I had placed my foot right beside this newborn kitten while tens of thousands of ants were eating it alive. And in my panic upon seeing my foot covered in ants, I had brought my foot right down on top of the kitten and crushed it. Of course, you can view this as a mercy for the kitten. It was not going to survive no matter what. Its life was over before it had even begun. Still blind and unable to move on its own, there was no hope for it. To be killed instantly by me was better than a slow death in the hot sun being devoured by ants. But even so, it was a moment of horror to think of what had happened to this little life and what I had just done. I continued on my journey in a strange mood after that. Friday, October 8th, 2021, 3 a.m., unknown hotel, Sam Niao, Thailand. I'm awake at 3 a.m. because I just happened to wake up at 2:30. But now the lights are on, I'm drinking coffee, and the MacBook is powered up because a large bug fell on my head. When I woke up at 2:30, at first I just lay in bed wondering if I should get up or not. Obviously, in terms of getting enough sleep and feeling rested, I shouldn't have, but I have a lot of things I want to do today, and I fell asleep the night before at exactly 10:30, which meant that I got 4 hours of solid and helpful sleep. In my present mood, those 4 hours could be enough. Anyway, I decided I really should get more sleep, and I turned around on the bed and settled into my trying to fall asleep position. And just then, something big landed on my head. I didn't know what it was. This room is wonderfully dark when the lights are off. But I had the sense it was an insect of some kind, most likely one of the big cockroaches they have here. I lay still for a while and waited for this creature to make its next move, but nothing happened. I felt I had no choice but to turn on the lights and see what was going on. An important aspect of these situations is not only seeing what the creature is and getting it off your body, but also making sure it doesn't scuttle into some inaccessible crack from which it can reappear and launch a second assault on your head. With that in mind, I try not to react suddenly when things land on my head. I move slowly as I get out of bed so as not to startle the creature and send it into hiding. I remember that happened all the time in Ethiopia, where my nights were punctuated with encounters with really big spiders. And I find it more difficult to coexist with spiders than anything else. But if your goal is to kill the intruding spider, you have to be very precise in your attack. If you miss, the spider will disappear under your bed, behind your bed, or into your bed sheets. And now you will have no choice but to try to go to sleep in the full knowledge that a large spider is on the loose in your bedroom. Without my large mosquito net in Ethiopia, I might have gotten no sleep at all, ever. There were simply too many creatures in all my rooms. I moved slowly as I raised myself up off the bed, but I felt nothing moving on my head or body. I reached behind me to the light switch on the wall. It was probably a design accident, but a light switch and an electrical outlet are conveniently placed right there on the wall above the bed. They would have been better placed a foot to the left rather than right above the mattress, but at least it is there, and I found the switch and turned on the light. And after my eyes adjusted, I saw a large brown beetle on my brown pillow. It was a big fellow, and I was glad to see that it was not a cockroach. All this time, my brain was trying to figure out the movements of this beetle. It had to have fallen from the air conditioner, which is also placed rather poorly right above the bed. But what caused it to fall, and why wasn't it moving? It actually looked dead. I came to the conclusion that it had crawled into the air conditioner as a convenient place to hide, but it had quickly become overcome and gone into a kind of dormant state because of the intense cold air. Once frozen, it lost its grip and fell on my head. I get ridiculously strategic in these situations, and I thought out my next move. How can I safely get this insect off my pillow without hurting it and without startling it such that it runs into the folds of my bedsheet? In the end, I needn't have worried. It was so affected by the cold that it was largely unable to move. I raised the pillow gently off the bed and carried it over to the door. I opened the door and lowered the pillow to the ground and then gave it a jerk to shake the beetle off. It landed on the cement steps in front of me and then came to life and slowly started to crawl away. And that was the end of the drama. I like that I'm thinking about a beetle being frozen and unable to move, because that ties in with the thoughts I had as I was falling asleep. I was thinking about petrified wood and people being petrified with fear. I found out yesterday from fellow YouTuber Brett Hall that the Petrified Wood Forest Park is located nearby. It is just off the main highway that runs down to Tac City from Samniao and the north. I hadn't planned to take the highway on my trip today. I was going to take my usual assortment of back roads. But with this new knowledge, I rethought my day, and I decided to make visiting the Petrified Wood Forest Park the highlight of today's scooter ride. I knew about the Petrified Wood Forest Park. It comes up a lot when you discuss local attractions. But I thought it was located much farther away to the north. I had no idea it was close and right on the way to Tac City. I haven't done a tremendous amount of reading, but I did learn last night a little bit about petrified wood, petrified forests, and this park in particular. I haven't committed to memory the exact process by which this happens, but petrified wood is essentially fossilized plant life. When conditions are just right, trees don't rot away. Instead, their organic material is replaced with a type of silica and other minerals. In essence, the trees turn to stone, and we are left with a 3D stone replica of a once organic tree. According to the park's website, the first petrified tree at this park was discovered by a local villager in October of 2003. I have no idea how this villager would have recognized a piece of petrified wood or understood its significance, but he reported it to the National Park Wildlife and Plant Conservation Department, and an officer was dispatched to investigate. This tree trunk was excavated in stages over time, and when it was fully uncovered, it was found to be 72.2 meters in length, which is the height of a 20-story building. And it turns out that this length is significant. I read in a Bangkok Post article that the current Guinness World Record holder is a petrified tree in China that measures at a mere 38 meters. This fossilized tree in Thailand is nearly double its length. and I understand that efforts are currently underway to claim the world record for this tree in Thailand. It's surprisingly difficult to track down the possible ages of the at least 40 petrified trees in this park. I haven't found a statement as yet that just comes out and says that the petrified trees are X number of years old. However, I have found articles that refer to the gravel deposits in which the trees were found, and these are estimated to be over 800,000 years old. Presumably, the petrified trees are as old or older than that. As an attraction, the Petrified Wood Forest Park appears to fall into that category of how you feel about it depends on how you approach it. Personally, I know that I will find it fascinating. I already find it fascinating, and I haven't even been there. I'm fascinated enough just by the reading I've done about the process of how petrified trees are formed. But other people who seek it out on a pleasure holiday would probably come away underwhelmed and wonder why they even bothered to visit. The reviews on TripAdvisor are quite funny from that point of view. The first review I saw reads in part, "You get to see 5 very poorly preserved fossilized tree trunks. I stopped as I saw the sign driving by, but you'll see better at your average furniture store in Thailand." But the very next review strikes a distinctly more positive tone. "This is an exceptionally interesting and well-presented park of fossilized trees. There are 5 trees to visit, and one is really a giant." Clearly, I would prefer to hang out with the second person. I'm also fascinated because I instantly thought of the expression petrified with fear. The connection is obvious. These trees were literally turned to stone, and a frightened person is often frozen in fear and unable to move. They have been figuratively petrified. I wouldn't say my beetle friend was petrified, but it was frozen by the cold and equally unable to move. I also began to wonder about the relationship between fossils and petrified trees. I did a bit of reading and I learned that they are strongly related, but still different. A fossil, it turns out, is any evidence of life that has been preserved. Therefore, the remains of an animal in rock can be a fossil, but footprints preserved in rock are also fossils. And a petrified tree is a fossil, but not all fossils are petrified. The basic idea is that fossilization includes a range of processes by which organic matter becomes fossilized. Petrification is just one of those. It's confusing, but I think I have it clear in my head. All petrified trees are fossils, but not all fossils are petrified. And with that background, I think I have enough information to enjoy a visit to the park today. Brett also told me that on the big highway down to Tak, I will pass by a Flintstones-themed coffee shop. I looked for it on Google Maps, but I couldn't locate it. Hopefully I will be able to spot it. Brett mentioned that there is a large statue of Fred Flintstone, so I hope it is one of those things that you can't help but see. On my last visit to this area, I learned that it is well known for the granite found here. I even visited a large granite processing site, and the Flintstone coffee shop presumably is a result of the importance of stone to this area's economy. I'm not sure what else I will discover today, but perhaps the Petrified Wood Forest Park and the Flintstone coffee shop is enough for one scooter ride. And at the end of my ride, I have an extremely pleasant surprise waiting for me. A mystery benefactor knows about my intention to spend a couple of nights in Tak, and he reserved and paid for a room for me at the Soho Boutique Hotel. I have 2 nights of relative luxury waiting for me in Tak City. This hotel even offers a breakfast buffet. On top of that, this hotel is located right downtown and just a short walk away from a bridge across the river that is probably the city's most visually interesting attraction. 6:30 a.m. I decided to go back to bed for a couple of hours. I was writing about the petrified forest until 4, and then I slept until 6. I was lucky in that I was able to go back to sleep. At 4, I could feel that I wasn't quite right for the day. I needed more gas in the tank. I feel better prepared now. I also feel good because I don't anticipate this being a particularly long riding day. I don't have the urge to get on the road as soon as possible. The Soho Boutique Hotel is 54 kilometers away by the most direct route on the main highway. Even with stopping at the Petrified Wood Forest Park and the Flintstone Coffee Shop, I anticipate a leisurely day. Knock on wood. Most of yesterday morning was dedicated to getting caught up on YouTube-related activities. Because of the effort involved in riding to Samniao, I wasn't even ready to do anything until 10 in the morning anyway. And the afternoon was dedicated to hanging out with Brett at a nearby and very nice coffee shop. I'd sent Brett an email, and he replied, and we arranged to meet at 2 p.m. I'd noticed a coffee shop just a block or two from my hotel. I stopped there on my way to meet Brett and concluded it was worth checking out. I think it was called the Game Cow Cafe. From the decor, they clearly had established the place from a love of coffee. It was a place where they took coffee seriously, and they had displays to educate their customers on the vocabulary of coffee. It turns out that Brett wasn't actually a coffee guy. In fact, he wasn't a fan of hot drinks at all. I didn't know that about him. But he gamely ordered an iced latte. I had my usual hot latte. Unfortunately, the latte was lukewarm at best. That was a disappointment. This is such a common occurrence, I'm starting to think that in Thailand, it is considered proper to serve a milk-based coffee just lukewarm. However, Game Cow made up for that with the quality of their service, an extra cup of piping hot tea, and a complimentary cup of another iced drink. The server brought the special iced drink over to us to try out, and I loved it. It was a clear liquid on ice served in a clear glass cup, and it had a slight tang to it. At first I was going to say it was a type of iced tea, but the tang made me think of a kind of fruit. I asked the server for the name, and he told me, but I don't remember what he said. I really should take advantage of all the technology I have and do things like record people when they speak. My phone can do at least a dozen useful things that I never take advantage of during the course of a normal day. Brett and I had a wonderful and wide-ranging conversation throughout the afternoon. We touched on a lot of interesting topics, and afterwards I thought again that I wish I had set up a camera and recorded the whole thing. Recording our conversation would have made a much more interesting video than anything I've ever put together. Of course, considering our common interests, we did tend to veer back toward the topic of technology and gadgetry quite often. And Brett told me that he had come across a couple of products online and he ordered them for me. They could be waiting for me by the time I get back to Mesot. Brett pays careful attention to what I say about my various cameras and microphones and gadgets in my videos. And when he sees a product that might solve one of my issues, he likes to send one to me. Brett is a pay-it-forward kind of guy. I am particularly excited about one of these items. It consists of a camera mounting device that attaches to the shoulder strap of a knapsack. But what gets me interested is that it comes with some special adapters and attachments. It's based on the GoPro quick release buckle mount, but the buckle mount is attached to a swivel that can rotate through 360 degrees. This buckle mount has the traditional GoPro mounting fingers, but this package also includes a rectangular strap designed to hold the Pocket 2. I've never seen one of these before, but it is designed to wrap around the handle of the Pocket 2 and then attach to the GoPro finger mounts. There are several potential advantages to this system, and I'm excited about putting it to the test. I like the ability to rotate the mount on the swivel. Any mount that is attached to a knapsack shoulder strap will often end up on an angle. It won't be possible to have it oriented straight up and down, and this swivel will be able to adjust for that. And the special Pocket 2 grip might work on a regular hand grip as well. If that works well, it would bypass the need for a tripod mount to GoPro finger mount adapter. It isn't really possible to know in advance if this would work. As always, this is something that I would try to do, but this device was never made for that. There are no photographs of it being used in this way. I won't be able to know for sure if it will work until I physically have it and can try it out. By the time Brett and I had dealt with about 50 different conversation topics, the afternoon was over and evening had begun. We had even gotten kicked out of the coffee shop proper because they closed at 4. But we then sat at a counter on their outside veranda for another hour. The coffee shop owners even brought us another cup of hot tea out there. I enjoyed mine very much. Brett, the non-hot drink enthusiast, didn't touch his. It was finally time to say our goodbyes, but we ended up talking for probably another hour while standing beside his car. I enjoyed our conversation very much. The way we talked, you'd think there was a going out of business sale on English words, and we had to use them all up before they were all gone. The evening passed in pleasant fashion as I worked on some videos and read about petrified trees and did other things. I could easily spend a week here in Sam Yao and enjoy myself greatly. With my habits, I could spend a month here comfortably. But on this trip, I had only one day, and I didn't actually use it to explore more of the town. I'm reluctant to leave, but I now have the city of Tak to explore. I hope to arrive relatively early this afternoon. I want to arrive with lots of light in the sky so that I can appreciate the Soho boutique hotel in daylight, settle into my room, and perhaps even walk down to the bridge over the river to end the day there. And with that, I think it is time to start packing up. The weather forecast is calling for the magical combination of sunny intervals and a gentle breeze. It would likely be an ideal day for my usual slow ramble through the countryside. But I'm going to switch things up and take the big highway most of the time. I'm a bit torn about that. I'd prefer to go along side roads, but I don't want to get distracted, and I want to reserve my energy for the experience of the petrified trees.